Coming up next on Another View, dating after divorce, speed dating, internet dating sites, mobile apps to help you find a mate. It's enough to make you stay home, especially if you've recently divorced and haven't been on the dating scene in a while. So, what are the new rules? How do you get started? How do you let others know you're ready to start dating again? And is it ever appropriate to introduce your kids to your date? And can you still meet someone the old-fashioned way, by human introduction? Our favorite relationship expert, Alvian Lyons, shares some tips and answers your questions coming up right after this news from NPR.
Discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. I've got to say right off the top, thank you so much, all my Facebook fans out there. Boy, I got some birthday love today. So I really, really appreciate all the messages, all the well wishes, and want to just say thank you for that. And yes, I am in a great mood today. It is my birthday, and right after we sign off the air today at 1 o'clock, my vacation starts, and so I'm having a grand old time today. Absolutely. Programming note, just want to let you know that we fully plan to explore from another view, from our perspective, the issues surrounding the Supreme Court decision on the Affordable Health Care Act and what happened to Attorney General Eric Holder being found in contempt of Congress. And we will talk about that in 2 weeks when I come back with our Another View roundtable. We did decide that we wanted to wait a little bit and let the pundits say what they say and let us analyze what's going on, and then we'll have a great discussion. So tune in for that, because you know that our roundtable will have some interesting insights along those lines. So today I am thrilled to be here to talk about a topic that many people face, and that is, how do you get back into the dating scene once you've divorced? Now, the divorce rate in the African American community is about 66%. They say only one out of every 3 marriages will survive. So some divorcees jump right back into dating, and others decide that they're going to wait a while. But the bottom line is, it's not your grandmother's dating scene anymore. And so here to help us with the new rules about relationships is relationship expert Alvian Lyons, who is president and CEO of Trace Success Incorporated. One of my favorite folks. Hi, Alvian.
Hi.
So glad to have you on the show today.
Likewise.
So we're talking about people who have been married for, say, 10 years or more, long time.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And now they have to get back out there and start dating again. Mm-hmm. It's totally changed, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It's very different. But the thing has not changed is what is really important before you begin the process. That hasn't changed. Yes, the internet and access in terms of social media and those venues are different. So how you may meet people has changed, but the experience has not. And what I mean by that is, whenever you're leaving a relationship, there's a lot of work that needs to be done internally before you start this process. Otherwise, you'll find yourself just cycling right back through old behaviors.
And whatever happened before winds up coming back again. I'm going to open the phone lines early, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Give us a call and talk to us about your experience if you have been divorced and getting back out on the dating scene. What has that been like for you? 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So let's talk about some of the things that you need to do, as you said, before you even start thinking about dating again. There's some internal
work that needs to be done.
Okay, so how do you do that?
Well, the closure element, and I know it's a word that people use all the time whenever they're ending one relationship going into another. Can I get closure on all of it? And the reality is, there's no perfect closure. You're not ever going to get all the questions answered. You're not going to always be able to figure out why he felt this way or why she felt this way. You may not get those answers, but there's certain things that are very, very core to what is going to be necessary in the next relationship. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by when I say core to the next relationship, are you still raw about how the relationship ended? There are different experiences people are going to have when they move from this relationship to the next relationship.
Because isn't there a grieving process that they go through? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And when I've talked to colleagues and clients and friends, and when I talk to them about it, and many of them have experienced the divorce rate. I mean, you just mentioned 66%. So it is by all means 2 out of 3 people in the room with you have been through this situation at some point or another, the experience. So it is very common to have conversation about what that has been like. But there's a lot to be said for how one leaves the previous relationship determines what the next one is going to be like. And what I mean by that in terms of the transition period, if we divorced and we divorced amicably, my experience going into the next relationship is very different than divorcing in a very nasty and volatile situation. That is a far more raw experience. So getting closure in something like that is very different than when we've just grown apart and we're actually able to be friends and co-parent if you have children, be able to communicate with each other in ways that are not overly emotive. What I'm prepared for and my ability to transition into the next relationship may be very different than the person that had to end it over an infidelity. Somebody got caught, somebody got upset. Those kinds of experiences make for a different starting point.
So some people say, if I ever get out, I'm never getting in.
Lots of people.
But I think people also realize that once they do divorce, sometimes that you realize that you really don't want to be alone. Is that a good reason
to find somebody else?
Yeah.
Well, I think that it's fair that we're designed for companionship. There are very few of us who really want to be alone. But there's a difference between alone and lonely. One of the things that women in particular have to be very careful about is that their reason for getting into the next relationship is that they're lonely. Lonely has more to do with your ability to be okay with yourself. Alone means I can be fantastic with me, but I want to share my happiness with someone else. When you are lonely, you're often looking for someone else to create your happiness. So you want to know the difference between sharing with someone and making someone else responsible for your happiness. That is significantly different.
So are there certain questions then that you should ask yourself to prepare? Give us some concrete.
Some things to think about. First of all, why did it end? What was my role in it ending?
And being honest about it.
Being honest about it. Like, if you're capable of being independently, as in not provoked by somebody else, analytical of yourself. Let me analyze me and my stuff. Try for a second to imagine what's the story your spouse would tell about you.
Wow.
If you can stop for a second and if you gave you could put on your spouse's best voice. She did this, do whatever it requires. Imagine what that story is. And then ask yourself, how true is that story? So sometimes when we step back, we can say, yes, he'll complain that I didn't do this and I didn't do that. Okay, well, how true are those things? How much did that truth resonate for you? Yes, I was gone a lot. Yes, I wasn't emotionally available. Yes, how much of that is really true? Because do you want to take those same things into the next relationship if in fact some of those are true?
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Morton joins us from Williamsburg. Hi, Morton. You're on the air.
Hi. I have a comment to make. I've written it down, so I'll read it real quickly.
Okay.
If you want to have a perfect relationship with a person, you have to work at it. You have to be totally honest with that person. You have to respect that person as an individual who is unique. You have to love that person unconditionally.
That's beautiful, Morton. Now, let me ask you a question. Are you married or have you been divorced?
I have been divorced. I was only married 10 years, and we married each other apparently for the wrong reason. And so after 10 years, she had the courage to walk out.
Okay. And did you find yourself getting back into the dating scene?
I have tried it. I'm very old. I'm 85. I've tried it a dozen times, but I finally gave up for the simple reason that I can't adjust to some of the things that are going on in the world today. Some of the ladies that I went out with and tried to get serious with were the type too modern for me. They just said, well, let's just live together. We don't have to get married. And I said, no, that's against my religion.
Morton, thanks so much for calling. We appreciate your call.
I'm glad to help.
Take care.
Thank you.
But, that thing about being set in your ways, is that something you should think about as you start to prepare to get back into the dating scene? Is that something you have to give up? Do you need to modify that?
Well, see, it's very interesting that you would ask that, because I was reading some articles the other day about, dating after divorce. And one of the things that it says is that men, the biggest mistake that's ever made is starting too soon. That is the one common thread that across all the research, all the articles, all the anecdotes, starting too soon.
So how do you know what's too soon?
And that's what's interesting. That's something that is absolutely a personal decision. Absolutely a personal decision. And that goes back to when you asked me before about being honest with yourself. You have to be honest with you about, are you ready? Why am I looking for companionship again? Am I struggling with the loneliness, or I'm tired of being alone? Knowing the difference between the two that we talked about before. What's the motivation for another partner? They say that men often get into relationships too fast after the divorce for very different reasons than women do.
Really?
Men typically do because the longer that they're married, the less capable they tend to be of living on their own. Not in terms of fiscally capable, but when you have a wife who knows where your socks are all the time, and now you have to find your own socks, you discover, I need some help. When you can't cook and there's nobody to cook for you, and you find out how expensive eating out is, you discover that I need someone else. See, men get into it often because they're looking for someone to come fix those things again. And it is very, very rare that they will go out and acquire those skills so that they can live alone. And with the disproportionate representation of women and men in this world, it is very easy for them to find somebody who would readily
come
fulfill
and do
those
it for
needs.
them.
Absolutely. Because they don't want to be alone either.
So why do women leave though?
Women or
women
get in
back
too
into
soon.
Right, get in too
Women,
soon.
it's normally the emotional issue. It's normally about the fact that I'm feeling lonely. I want somebody to be there when I come home every day. I need the assurance of having a partner. And then one of the worst reasons for women to get back into relationships very quickly is defining themselves as a quality woman based on whether or not they have a man. That ends up shooting them in the foot every time over, because then you're not looking for the person that's right for you. You're just looking for someone right now.
Because you're worried about what you look like without having a spot, and what people are going to say.
And they get pushed in. We're so influenced by what other people say. We live in a community as women. So we're often sharing and feeling out loud in ways that men don't. So while we're sharing with our friends, lots of people have different perspectives. So you get the pressure from moms. Hey, if you don't start dating soon, you'll be competing with the 20-year-olds. You've got to hurry up. Or if you haven't had kids yet, you got to hurry and find a mate so you guys can have children. There are levels of social pressure that exist for women that are different than men. So women sometimes find themselves succumbing to that in order to get into a relationship again quickly, because it's part of how they're defining their womanhood.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Do you have questions about how to get back into the dating scene? Have you tried it and you find that it's either working for you or not? Give us your story. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So you do your analysis.
Start with analyzing self first.
Analyzing self. You figure out, I'm okay. I've been separated, or I've been divorced for a while. I figured out what I want. I figured out what I did wrong. I'm ready to get back out there. So how do I do this internet thing?
What now? And for some of us, the internet thing is fantastic because our lives are so set. The dating and finding somebody else is a numbers game. That is the reality. You've got to be able to increase your numbers.
So, Alvin, seriously, when you go to a site and they do your profile and you have
and you put
hundreds
that
of people
picture up
and
there.
You look exactly that really
It is. It's still a numbers game. And it's the difference between the traditional way of finding somebody and what's now becoming the new traditional, to be quite honest, but the new way of finding a partner. I mean, as opposed to bumping into somebody in the grocery store, which I still think is the best way. I have to be very honest.
Okay, so you think the personal one-on-one.
This is personally. There's no research to support this. This is just life according to Albion. I think that being able to meet someone in an environment that is consistent with your real life is an ideal way to meet someone. The thing that I don't want women to do is, if the reason that the last relationship ended, or men for that, so we'll keep it equal, both men and women, if the reason the last relationship ended was because he or she was often a partier, they were out very often, they hung out late, coming home late, those kinds of things. Well, where did you meet that person? Turns out you met them at the club or the bar. I would not suggest that you go back to the club or the bar to meet the next one.
Because their behavior is probably not going to change.
It's probably not going to be that different.
Why do we think, and this is for the women out there, now, okay, y'all can get mad at me if you want, but why do women think that I'm the one who's going to change him? I mean, really? Why? If you're dating a man who is married, or if you're dating a man who is a player, who hangs out there and so forth, why do we think, but I'm different, I can change him?
I think it's because we think men are like women. Because the truth is, when we fall in love, it's much like when we become moms. We become mothers way before we actually give birth to our children. We know the emotional changes that are taking place long before we're experiencing it on the outside. So we assume that men operate the same way. It's the same thing that men don't feel like fathers until after the children are born. They very rarely feel like fathers while you're pregnant, although we feel 100% like a mommy.
Yeah, kind of.
Because the change is happening already for us. Well, the same thing seems to happen in terms of relationships as well. We think that men operate like we do, that our willingness to be able to change for someone else because of how much we love them, that even if I was this way coming into the relationship, I love you so much that I'm willing to make those adjustments for you. We assume that men operate the same way, that they'll fall in love with me and whatever they were doing before is going to be different now. Not so. Not so. It's just simply not so. Not that people don't change. Not that love doesn't influence someone. That time with someone does not change certain things about them. It does. Part of loving someone is being able to influence them, ideally in positive ways, mutually. But the reality is that if you're coming in to do an overhaul on someone else, you're wasting your time. You need to meet someone who, for the most part, shares the same values and interests you do from the beginning, because the chances are it is not going to change that much in the relationship.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. What are your relationship questions? And we really would love to hear from you. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. We do have a question. Someone wants to know, you were talking about increasing your numbers, and what is a good number?
I don't know that there is a perfect number. The idea of increasing numbers is that you're coming out of, if we work 40 hours a week, you go to the gym for X amount of time if you're a person who works out, or you may have some kind of other hobby that you do. Our lives become very static. We do the same things on a regular basis. Well, that means that for the most part, you're bumping into the same people on a regular basis. So if you haven't found them in 5 years doing what you've already been doing, you're going to have to do something different. If you haven't found her doing what you were doing, you're going to have to do something different. So in order to increase your numbers, that means that you're going to have to change your experience on some level to be exposed to different people than the people you're seeing every day. So yes, in a grocery store or in a bank or somebody, you can by chance meet somebody who turns out to be wonderful. But the reality is that if you want to maximize the opportunity for how many people you are exposed to, having the internet does do that.
Okay, so how do you weed through and determine whether or not, A, it's a true picture, and B, if this is someone that you really want to take a chance with? Because it still seems to me that's kind of a dangerous...
It's risky. It is. And there are smarter ways to do it. Nothing is perfect, but there's smarter ways to do it, particularly for women, just because we're more vulnerable. We're physically more vulnerable by putting ourselves out there, going to date someone we've never met before, being in an environment with a stranger. I mean, we just are more vulnerable. So for women, the smarter thing to do for us is, if you have peers, friends, colleagues that you have a very good relationship with, make them a part of the process. What I mean by that is, if you find somebody that you're interested in, eHarmony, whatever your dating site, whatever the site is, and I'm not endorsing any in particular, just whatever site of your choice, you meet somebody that's interesting. There's the conversation that goes on, and I've walked through some of my clients through this process before. So I've actually been with clients as they're figuring out how to answer the questions, and a lot of the sites have some guidelines in terms of how many conversations you have before you're even able to exchange personal information. So I do like the fact that there have been some guards set in place for that. But once you get past the point that you're now having direct conversation with someone, you're emailing back and forth directly, you've exchanged phone numbers, and you're planning to meet, that's when you definitely want to make sure you have friends available for the process. If you have guy friends, great. If you have girlfriends, great, that can go with you. Meet at a neutral place.
But you don't mean physically go and sit at the same table.
No,
okay.
I mean be in the same restaurant, be in the same coffee shop, be somewhere that in an emergency there is someone who's looking out for you at that instant. It is a fantastic thing to know that you have the comfort of somebody else who's kind of watching things. And sometimes we get enamored with someone. I meet you and you seem so cute, but I didn't notice that you were fidgeting with your pocket the entire time.
Got you.
Something might be funny, but your girlfriend or your guy friend did pay attention to that. I didn't notice that her skirt was a little bit too short. I thought she was just pretty, but it didn't quite click for me that if I'm looking for a particular kind of woman, this might be something I might want to consider in the way that she came into this relationship to begin with. But my friend did pay attention to that because he or she knows what I said I was looking for.
They can be more objective.
They can be more objective.
And especially if you're just starting.
Absolutely. And because we come in with so much emotion, whether you're a man or a woman, you're coming in wanting it to work. You don't even bother dating if you don't want it to work. So you're already leaning in a particular direction. You want to see what you want. And sometimes it blinds us to some of the things that we need to be careful about.
I remember when I was single 4 years ago.
Indeed, the newlywed.
But friends used to tell me all the time, they used to say, Barbara, why can't you just date? Why do you always look for a relationship?
Right.
When we go into this, should you look at it as this is just a date? I mean, without any expectations that it has to go someplace else?
I would definitely say so. I think that you need to be clear about what you want. That, I think, should be clear because time is precious. You don't get 1 second of it back. So I certainly wouldn't recommend that you're just wasting time with people that you know that there is no possible future. You have totally different, and assuming that you met on the internet, for instance, you've had several conversations. Well, this person says they value A, B, and C, but your favorite things are D, E, and F. Well, if you already know those things, why waste the time? It's your choice. I don't recommend it because you don't always know when you're going to get emotionally involved with someone deeply committed to this thing turning into something, and you're back at that situation where you're trying to change another individual. You came in knowing that the person's favorite color was purple. Now you want it to be orange.
Exactly. Now you want to change them.
Right. And that's where we run into issues. So try your best to minimize the unnecessary pain. I don't mean be pain averse, because some people guard themselves from relationships and intimacy because they're pain averse. We have to be open to the pain. That's the only way to be open to the possibilities. You have to be okay with getting hurt. It's not going to feel good, but you've got to be okay with that, because you'll never know about the other side of it if you're already guarding yourself against the experience. But I am saying try your best to have those experiences with people that you already know that you have at least some common interest, some common values, and the things that are core to you. Yes, my kids are primary in my life. Well, then don't date someone that doesn't like children. It would not be in your best interest.
It would not work. If you're just joining us, we're talking about dating after divorce with relationship expert Alvian Lyons, CEO of Trace Success Incorporated. And Bob joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Bob. You're on the air.
Hello, Barbara. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Good. Just quickly, I'm not an African-American, but I absolutely love your show.
Well, I appreciate that. You don't have to be African-American to love our show.
Everybody's welcome here, Bob.
I know that, but I think a wonderful show. I really do love it.
Thank you.
I really appreciate y'all having this topic on, because divorce is still kind of a taboo subject, and it's just not talked about that much.
Mm-hmm.
And excuse me, because I could talk forever, and I've got so many questions. But very quickly, my wife decided to end the marriage about 5 years ago, and we have 2 children. They're 5 and 7 right now, we've met. I guess about 8. No, I'm sorry, I'm getting it all. Well, we met in 1999, dated for about 3 years, married in 2001. We're married for 5 years, and I didn't cheat on her, didn't physically, mentally beat her or whatever. Mm-hmm. I had some issues as far as I was drinking too much for a bit there, and nothing insane, but just overly, going out partying with friends on the weekend, couldn't stop, and knew that was an issue. But she doesn't communicate too well, and she just became unhappy. But I had no clue how unhappy she was, even though we did marriage counseling. The last thing I thought was she would leave me, and I'd actually quit drinking 8 months before that had happened. But to kind of summarize it, I was devastated. I mean, I no one in my family has been divorced. It absolutely shocked me I can't even describe it, and it still, it still does.
Yeah, you can tell you're still affected by it.
Yeah, and
okay.
Honestly, there's 1,000 things I could talk about, but I'm kind of starting to have feelings for her again. I don't think I've ever fallen out of love with her, although she started dating a guy a year after we were divorced and were separated, and then married him 3 years later.
So Bob, so she's remarried?
Yeah, I mean they were dating, and they were, we have a clause in our divorce decree that you can't spend the night when the children are there. And for long story short, I had let her, or I had said she could have him stay there when the girls were there for various reasons. And then she asked me again, 3 years later, 2.5 years later, and I said no, because honestly I thought they wouldn't be dating by then. And so we were going to go to court. She wanted to go to court over it, the cohabitation clause. And
well, can we get what's your question though for Alvian? Where do you want to go with this?
It's tough to know. I mean, I guess the main thing is, how do you possibly get over someone that you still love and you don't think you really, did that much to deserve it? And certainly, wish you could have a second chance and
okay.
all that.
Okay, Bob, let's let Alvian answer the question. Thanks so much for your call. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob.
Alvian, what do you think?
Well, that's a tough situation to be in, because loving someone is not something that there are, 5 steps to letting go of that relationship. There's no perfect, antidote to love. I want to cure myself of having this feeling for someone anymore. And especially when you've created life together. People greatly underestimate what happens once you've built new lives together. Bob has 2 kids with her. So I can't say that there's a particular way in which one gets over it. Mm-hmm. What I can say is that anything that you give attention to always becomes bigger. So if you're focused on trying to have this relationship with your ex, and your ex has moved on, you will be obsessing over a chapter that has already closed. Life is a book. You're going to have 1 million chapters in it. You're going to have to eventually move on to the next chapter at some point. If she's done, she may be all the way done. There may be no possibility of getting back together again. And we have to remember that there is both our intention in an experience and the impact of an experience. Bob may never have intended to hurt his wife by doing what he was doing, but the impact of what he was doing hurt her. Mm-hmm. And it may have hurt her to the point that it is irreparable in terms of them having an intimate relationship again. They may be able to develop a friendship beyond this, co-parent effectively, enjoy each other's time, but for there are points in a relationship that you figure out that this person just may not work for me, period.
Okay, Bob, I hope that helped you out. Thanks so much for the call. We had a gentleman call in who did not want to be identified.
No problem.
But that's okay. But he wants to know, where can he go to meet a woman?
They're everywhere.
Everywhere.
They are everywhere, and they want you. Okay, they're everywhere. The best thing to do is to make points of doing things that you enjoy. Find people and places that are already doing things you enjoy. That is the best way to meet somebody. So if I like to work out, I'm going to pay attention to or attempt to at least meet people either while I'm running on the trails or whether I'm in the gym or whatever outdoor activity or indoor activity it is that I enjoy.
Plus, you already know that's something that
we
share
share
in common.
a common value from the beginning. If my faith is super important to me, that might be a place that you really want to consider. And it may not even be at your own church. You may want to go visit some other churches that have those same kind, or synagogues or temples, whatever it is that your faith is. You may want to consider exposing and increasing the amount of people that you are meeting that share this common thing that is core to who you are. Or if education is important to you, take a class. Whether it's culinary, whether it's something for learn how to manage your finances better, whatever it is, based on your value system, try doing new things that are already consistent with your value system. And you are starting from the beginning a leg up because you already know that the person who you're meeting has some value or appreciates what it is that you're already interested in.
Do your friends still try to hook you up? Is that an option anymore?
Some of them do. Some do. Some have figured out, because you're so ornery, I'm not going to bother.
But I've heard a lot of men of my married friends too, where there will be some of us who were single, and they would say, "I'm not getting into that dating game thing. I'm not a matchmaker. I'm not going to introduce, and so forth." But
there are pros and cons to that, because if you have a great friend and you think somebody else would be great for them, you feel a sense of responsibility and obligation for the relationship to turn out positive because it's with somebody that you already care about. And some people don't want to have that pressure. That if it works, I want it to work.
Out, right.
If it doesn't, I don't want that to land on me. So, the reality is that you can get one or both. It's nice if your friends, because your friends know who you are. It's great if they meet somebody that they think would be good for you. But there are also other things that come with that. I've had experiences before. I have single friends that I've met wonderful. I've been very blessed to meet some wonderful, wonderful men. And typically what will happen is a man will say, do you have a friend or a sister or something? Well, the thing that women hate about that is, I don't want to know that he wanted you. And because he couldn't get you,
now he's turning to me.
Now the default is me. So every time we go out, I have to wonder if he's looking at you. There are certain things in certain ways that people are a little funny and
That's really interesting. I never thought
that.
about that perspective.
Because I have a sister that looks very much like me, but our personalities are very different. She's wonderful, but our personalities are different. I definitely, we have both run into situations where somebody has said, "Do you have a sister?" No, I don't. Nope, sure don't.
Gosh.
Only child, even though we have 4.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. What are your questions about dating today in today's world? Alvian, let's talk about speed dating. Have you experienced anyone who has done some speed dating?
I've had a couple clients that have. They weren't in love with the experience. I have not personally. However, I can say that I have and can relate profoundly to the divorce experience. My husband and I, many, many years ago, almost got a divorce. So I know what it's like to be at that place where you think it cannot work past this point. We have been very fortunate to have built something fantastic out of the ashes. And I do it a million times over, but it's not easy to do. It was a very, very difficult but worthwhile process for us. As a result of that, though, in that period of time, I met lots of people who were going through divorces and lots of clients who were experiencing it simultaneously, all of that. And with that being said, what has been shared with me about the speed dating experience is that you can't really feel an individual. You almost get only the opportunity to,
because you basically
physically
sit down
for like a snapshot, snapshot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
then you're on to the next
then you're on to
person.
the next person. And what typically ends up happening is that you get the initial, am I attracted or am I not attracted to this person? So you normally end up on the superficial level first, which technically is supposed to turn into the more substantive levels thereafter. But a lot of people get hung up on the superficial. I think she's hot. I think he's hot. And we forget about all the things that we were supposed to be figuring out about each other to begin with. So the thing that I like about the internet dating instead is that it starts with the conversations about substantive things, ideally. And then you begin to expose yourselves to each other to develop that physical attraction. Yes, you see the picture, so you know the person is not a hobbit. But you're supposed to be having some conversation first, so you're liking each other on levels that are more substantive rather than wow.
I have to tell our audience, when you call in, you can feel free to use an alias, because we keep getting a lot of anonymous calls. It's like nobody wants to say their name. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Kids. Most times, especially if you've been married for a long time, you have children. Mom or dad decides to start dating again. How do you play that dynamic? And when or if is it appropriate to introduce your date?
Well, the first thing is in order to increase the possibility of success, and when I mean success, I'm talking about you not running uphill with bricks in your backpack, okay? When dealing with children, is the kids first have to accept the fact that mom and dad are actually moving on. It doesn't often really matter how old the children are. For the most part, the kids always wish that mom and dad would end up together, that somehow they'd find a way to work this thing out. Because after all, for children, that's 50% of who I am is leaving this equation in some form or fashion. Most times.
And this is even after you have divorced. I mean, that where you physically separated, one may be in one city, one may be someplace else, so forth. There's still that wish.
Oh, absolutely.
Going on.
It could be totally in ink, black and white. We've already established custody. We're living in different states. And kids, that's the beautiful thing about children and the resilience of children, is they can believe for the impossible in ways that adults don't. So kids will still wish that somehow this thing can work out. So one of the things that is absolutely imperative for parents is to make crystal clear that this is done. And that doesn't mean bad mouthing your spouse, because I really don't believe in that. Because you have to remember that even for the child hearing it, you're talking about 50% of me is this thing. So avoid bad mouthing the spouse. Speak more about, this is what I need to do for me so that I could be a better individual and being a better mom or a better dad to you as a byproduct of being happier. That I can invest in you in different ways and make sure that it's clear for the kids that you had nothing to do with this. There's nothing wrong with you, that I need to move on with my personal life, because you will always be the most important thing in my life. And then you have to live that. Because if you're going to introduce somebody else into their lives, say, for instance, Saturdays were game days with the kids, and all of a sudden this somebody else comes into your life and Saturdays are no longer their game days, you have already said to them,
set up a resentment right
absolutely,
there.
that this other person is in competition with you. And once that happens, it becomes a very messy process. So the first thing is making sure the kids clearly understand that we are moving on and it is not your fault. Make that as positive as possible. Second step is making sure that you are sure that you're ready for this person to meet your kids. Is it okay for them to meet your children? Absolutely. When is it okay? It's different. It's based on how well you know this person that you're getting serious about. I certainly would suggest that you introduce your kids as a screening process to all of the people that you invite into your life. Never use kids as screening, because kids build bonds in ways we don't expect them to. So child may love Jim. Jim is fantastic. Mom's only been dating Jim for 3 weeks, but Jim just has this spark when it comes to children. Turns out Jim's credit score is 12. So
there's going to be a problem.
We're going to have a problem. So we might want to know those things before we introduce Jim to our kids. And conversely, Sarah is fantastic. She's absolutely gorgeous, but you know what? She doesn't even like kids. So there's certain things that we have to be careful about. Don't use your children as screens for the new potential partner. partner. But at the point that you think that you're serious, you think that you've done all of the
and you really
legwork,
should wait until you're serious
you
about
need
that
to
person.
know that you need to at least believe this person may be around for a while before you do that. Don't do it while you're still trying to figure it out. Have a sense. And I'm not saying be in love with the person first, because that may be too far gone, because you fall in love with the person and then they don't get along with your children.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother problem. Yeah. But I am saying when you start to see that there could be some real potential, and we're talking about a real future here. We've done some time together. We've dated consistently for a period of time. I think I'd like for the kids to meet them in a neutral place so that we are not sitting around at a dinner table with awkward conversation. If you're going to introduce your kids, do something together as opposed to sitting at a restaurant, ideally.
Okay. Cece joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Cece. You're on the air.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Couple of things just want to kind of throw out there. I'm over 50, have been divorced, currently single. I was at one time one of those, no, don't ever want to get married again. But now, I've evolved and I would like to have a companion. Mm-hmm. But I guess one of the biggest challenges I have is maintaining or expressing my desire for celibacy. Mm-hmm. I find, particularly with older men, mm-hmm. it's like not even a conversation that they want to have. And so I was trying to decide at one point, well, when's the best time to bring it up? And I have found that now I kind of bring it up right in the beginning so that they at least know, because I've had situations where after a month or two or so, and then I'll bring it up. It's like, I wish you had told me this before, kind of thing. And then also I wanted to talk about grown children, even when parents are divorced, and we're talking about older children, 20s, early 30s, they still have a lot of pull with their parents, so to speak. And so that can be challenging, too, in relationships. So all of that to say is, how do you then meet somebody with all of that? And I'll take my answer off the air.
Cece, thanks so much for calling. We appreciate that.
You, Cece.
That's a very good question, though, because you have to decide within yourself how you want to handle the sexual aspect of a relationship.
I'm a firm believer in upfront. I don't like bait and switch. I really believe that when someone knows what they're getting into from the beginning, it's the best time to do that. Establishing, nobody likes to find out that the foundation that they think they built a relationship on is not in fact that foundation, regardless of what it is, whether we're talking about sexual compatibility, whether we're talking about how we're going to spend our time, whatever it is, establish it as much as you can up front. So it feels like the relationship is created on all truths, so to speak. And if a truth for Cece is that I want to make sure that I maintain my celibacy, that's a good thing to tell a man up front, because that is absolutely not what the average man is thinking when they saw beautiful Cece.
But you know what? And the other thing, too, for Cece, though, is that she should not think if he says, I wish you had told me that in the beginning, and doesn't want to continue to engage in the relationship. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with her decision to remain celibate.
Absolutely not. If that's something that is important to her, it doesn't matter what anybody else's opinion is about it. And somebody who cares about you cares about what matters to you. So if that's important, then she should not feel like she has to compromise or argue about or negotiate a position that is core to who she is. So absolutely. And then where the adult children are concerned, they're right. She's right. They do have a lot of pull, and they feel like your children become your parents when they're adults. So they feel like they know what is best for Cece. Mommy, Cece, I know what's best for you. And they may be wrong. They may be totally right, but they're going to have opinions. You have to be settled enough that I am interested in starting a relationship, and to the best of your ability, respecting them as adults in conversation, to say the same way you want someone in your life, I do too. And I hope that I'll find someone that we work well together as a family, because even though you're not in the home with me, we're still a family. But we have to make this thing happen, because mom's not going to be alone for the rest of her life.
But should you ever say then to your the person you're dating, my child just is not feeling this, so therefore I'm going to walk away?
Well, that's
how much control, I guess, is what I'm asking.
That's up to you in terms of how you want to address that issue. That may be the reason why you're ending a relationship, but you have to choose whether or not that's how you want to share why you're ending the relationship. Sometimes you may want to protect your kids from it was the child's fault that this didn't work out. Sometimes you may want to. That's a personal choice. But you certainly, if you think that there's something that could have been a misunderstanding in the experience they had when they met each other, you may want to share with the partner, assuming that you're very into this person, that, hey, let's revisit the getting together with the kids, because the first time I don't think they got to see who you really were, whatever it may be. But if you find that each time they get together you're running into the same issue, it just may not work. Not if you want them both in your life at the same time.
At the same time. We've got about 3 minutes left. Dave, you're on the air, calling from Virginia Beach. Hi, Dave. Turn your radio down.
You're running into the same issue.
Dave, can you turn your radio down?
You want them both in your life at the same time.
Okay. Unfortunately, we couldn't get through today, but David is calling us from Chesapeake. Hi, David.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I'll try to make it brief. I got two things. One, with the children and relationships, and being in, say, a marriage, and then you break up or whatever, and then people, kind of going out to step into those waters of and how they're explaining to the children that they're, this is not going to work out. And,
Dave, you got to get to your question. We only got about 2 minutes left, and I want to give Alvian time to answer it.
All right. Well, basically, I just want to say, I guess, why is it that when people get into relationships, they put up all these boundaries and all of these, laundry list of things versus just developing a few questions within themselves internally to ask somebody in general conversation so that they kind of flush out like a rabbit. You kind of flush out those issues that, you may be looking for versus having to go, hey, this is all my laundry list of what I want and don't want, blah, 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 blah,
Right.
We get your point, David. Thanks for calling. Go ahead, Alvian.
And Dave's actually very right about it. We're really talking about the differences in approaching this experience. So for a man, you may decide that here's what I know that I want and don't want. So as I'm experiencing this new dating with this woman, I've figured out that here she's missed 10 out of the 20 things already. For a woman, we are far more communicative. We want to talk about things. So we want to tell you and be sure that we haven't sent mixed messages about things because we are very accepting and warm. We don't want to think we sent mixed messages. So for women, sometimes they actually want to put the list out there. Let me be crystal clear about A, B, and C, which are super important to me. So it's really a matter of approach, but it could work.
Unfortunately, I can't believe we're out of time.
In an hour,
I know, we can just talk
and
talk and talk. Absolutely. Thanks again, Alvian. And we will definitely have you back soon because you are one of our favorite guests. So thanks so much.
I love it here. This is home.
And that's Alvian Lyons. She is the CEO of Trace Success Incorporated and a relationship expert. And we will be right back.
Guarantee that I'll be fine. No more pain. No more pain. No more pain. No more pain. No drama. No more drama in my life. No one's gonna make me hurt again.
And welcome back. About 60 young people are swaying, twirling, and stepping their way across the stage at Norfolk's Attucks Theater. It's all a part of the Camp Rise experience. This free program is open to ages 11 through 14 and uses ballet, modern, and African dance as a tool to inspire confidence and leadership among the campers. Our Lisa Godley went behind the scenes of this inspirational camp where dance is challenging both the body and the mind.
Same thing. 3 and 4 and 5, 6, 7 and 8. Second one. 2, 3, 4.
For 10-year-old Leomani Parker of Norfolk, this is one summer camp she plans to attend next year.
We're actually learning ballet, West African, modern jazz, capoeira, creative writing, and personal development. I like all 7 classes, and personal development helps me develop myself and learn more things about what can happen in bullying, respect, and stuff like that.
Leomani is one of 60 middle schoolers participating in Camp Rise, which is an acronym for Rhythm in Setting Expectations. For 7 hours a day, for 3 weeks, campers are challenged by professionals to move with grace and precision.
Up, down, up, down, up, down.
While one group glides across the stage at Norfolk's Attucks Theater, exploring the ins and outs of modern dance, another group studies African dance in a practice room upstairs.
6, 7, 8. Step, reach, reach, reach. Lean into it and go across your body. Reach, reach. That hand comes down when the foot comes up.
12-year-old Tiffany Prigram of Norfolk describes the first week and a half of Camp Rise this way.
My experience has been great. I made some new friends, and at the same time, I had different dance styles that I got to try out, and I also been a better dancer.
It's lower than that, ladies.
While the group studying African dance masters their technique, another group is twirling and swirling under the direction of Gail Hartz, the camp's ballet instructor. 12-year-old Donovan Lee of Virginia Beach says he also plans to return next summer.
I mainly like learning the new dances because they're filled with so many different cultures. We've learned African dance, and there's this storytelling dance called Lombard, and it's also used for healing.
Campers receive full tuition scholarships, which include their dance wear and a camp t-shirt, breakfast and lunch, and of course, quality instruction. And when they're not mastering the dance, they're in developmental workshops learning everything from financial literacy to conflict resolution. The Crispus Attucks Cultural Center's executive director, Gail Easley, describes the Camp Rise experience this way.
We primarily target low-income communities, Title I schools, low-performing schools, and we use dance as a vehicle to create self-esteem, critical thinking skills. They build a better body, they build a stronger body, rather, and they have the opportunity to let their minds soar before they enter the challenging years of high school.
It's definitely something these campers won't forget, and those we spoke with plan to experience again and again. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
At Gail Easley and the programs over at the Attucks Theater, they're doing fabulous things with the young people in the community, so we salute them. Time now for things to view and do in Hampton Roads.
You will be my Saturday love.
Adult volunteers are needed to work with students at the Summer of Innovation Education Camp in Virginia Beach. The camp is sponsored by One Hand to Another, a nonprofit charitable organization founded by Pharrell Williams. The camp is full, but adults with expertise in science, technology, engineering, and math are needed. Summer of Innovation runs July 11 through August 17 and is for kids grades 3 through 8. Contact Stacy Lopez for more information at 238-5702. It's magic in downtown Norfolk in July with the return of the International Brotherhood of Magicians Convention. And you can watch incredible magic shows on July 5, 6, and 7 at the Chrysler Hall Theater. Programs are at 7:30 on July 5 and 6, 8 p.m. on July 7th. Tickets are available. Visit magician.org to find out more. You're invited to attend the Accomack Firecracker Book Sale on July 4th from 9 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. Come watch the Accomack Independence Day Parade from under the tree at the library and browse among the great selection of books. It's at the Accomack Main Library on Front Street in Accomack. Call 757-787-3400 for more information. And you have until July 9th to experience Swing Time Salute, an on-deck review aboard the Battleship Wisconsin. Performances are July 4 through 9 at 8 p.m. It's produced by Nauticus and the Virginia Stage Company and is sure to delight people of all ages. Visit vastage.com to learn more. And before we leave you today, I want to send a special condolence to the family of Victoria Ricks. Victoria was in charge of our major donors here at WHRO and was a huge fan of Another View. Victoria passed away last week after a long battle with cancer. She will truly be missed, and I just want her family to know that we appreciated being able to share her life with her. So we wish them the very best. And that's our show for today. I'm on vacation next week, so Lisa Godley will be here behind the mic. For producer Lisa Godley, audio engineer Perry Smith, Jacob Bronshow, who answered our phones, I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Enjoy your 4th of July holiday. I'll see you in 2 weeks on the radio, and thanks again for the birthday wishes. Everybody, take care. We'll see you next time for Another View.